Hello and welcome to Across Africa, coming up in this week's edition. Paying a debt from the past, France finally grants citizenship to dozens of Senegalese war veterans. Elsewhere, how Nigerians are embracing solar energy as they rebuild their lives in the wake of Boko Haram. Cash-strapped Egyptians find a novel way of crowdfunding their weddings. Start here in France, where the government's granted citizenship to Senegalese war veterans who risked their lives in Vietnam and Algeria. The troops belong to the Senegalese infantry regiment, which was part of the French army, but campaigners have long argued Paris turned its back on them once the fighting was over.
Souvenirs of a past life. At 88, Yoro Diao remembers vividly his days as an infantryman in the French army. Some, like the Battle of Tonkin during the French War with Indochina, are hard to forget.
It was guerrilla warfare. It wasn't a frontal assault. If you have the enemy in front of you, you can defend yourself. But there were guerrillas. They used every means. I lost a lot of friends in Indochina, many Frenchmen, Europeans and Africans.
Diao is a veteran of the 24th Senegalese Infantry Regiment of the French Army. He fought in Indochina as well as in Algeria. Though he collects a veteran's pension in France, he has never been granted nationality. Along with fellow veterans, who are also his neighbors in his suburban Paris residence, Diao is now closer than ever to becoming a citizen of the country he risked his life to defend.
When they recruited us into the French army, we were considered French. But when we left the French army, we became Senegalese.
Their cause got a boost when it caught the attention of Aissata Seck. Herself granddaughter of a Senegalese infantryman, she started by helping the veterans with paperwork.
Putting together the files takes a long time. When they open their cases, they get a list of documents to produce, and then they either have to return to Senegal or to get their families in Senegal to help them to find out how to get all the documents. The hardest to obtain are the birth certificates of the parents and grandparents. They're impossible to get since, at the time of birth of the parents of these veteran infantrymen, there was no birth registry.
At a bureaucratic dead end, Seck then decided to appeal to France's highest office. She launched a petition that gathered more than 60,000 signatures and soon received a letter from the President of France.
Of course, this means our efforts paid off, and above all, it's official. It can't be undone.
It took decades of work, and the gesture comes too late for soldiers who've since passed away. Though Diao is focusing on the future, he knows he has succeeded where others have failed.
I feel like I'm getting what our forefathers never had. Veterans of World War I didn't get it even though they asked. Veterans of World War II didn't get it. If we get it, we will be the third generation, veterans of Indochina and Algeria. We're quite satisfied.
Planning is underway for the naturalization ceremony, which will make French citizens of 100 or so living veterans.
To Madagascar next, where the search for precious stones is proving to be a source of misery. Sapphires were first discovered in the country in the late 1990s. Today, thousands of people risk dangerous mines looking for them in a hunt that often proves fruitless.
2 weeks to dig a 10-metre hole. Countless grueling trips underground and often years without finding a single stone. In the south of Madagascar, thousands of miners, including children, spend their days looking for sapphires in dangerous and strenuous conditions.
You need to have a lot of energy. It's a scary job. But when you want to succeed in the sapphire business, you have to take risks. Our suffering makes us work harder.
After digging, the miners sieve the earth in the nearby river. More than 40% of the world's production of sapphires comes from this Indian Ocean island. They're mostly extracted in loosely regulated informal mines like this. The 250-kilometre-long Sakaraha deposit is among the biggest in the world and has sparked a sapphire rush. But for most, the rush doesn't lead to riches.
I'm 18 and it's been 8 years I've been looking for sapphires. I found one once. I earned 140 euros. When you find a sapphire, we sell it in Sakaraha and then we come back here.
Mine bosses and nearby gem shop owners can sell a stone bought here for 10 times its value in Sri Lanka, where the best finds are sent to be polished, cut and sold. These Madagascan miners earn money only when they find sapphires or cheaper precious stones. Otherwise, they are given only basic rations.
Every one week, I give foods for them. After have stone, I buy from my mining.
But while the dealers reap rewards, the government sees very little in the way of tax revenue. Meanwhile, the routine for Madagascar's sapphire miners continues. Each one praying a large bright stone will transform their life forever.
Next, people in Gahara Mujiri in northern Nigeria's Adamawa state are gradually rebuilding their lives after attacks by Boko Haram, who 2 years ago left their homes destroyed and infrastructure ruined. In the process, residents have embraced solar energy in areas still cut off from the national grid.
This village in Nigeria's northeastern Adamawa state was attacked by Boko Haram 2 years ago. Those who fled the violence are slowly returning home as the Nigerian army has recovered much of the territory it had lost to the jihadists. To help the locals, the government and the United Nations introduced solar panels. They are used to power street lighting and, above all, water pumps.
Before the solar, we used to fetch water in the stream. But the solar comes, we stop going to the stream because the solar gives us water so much.
Solar panels have been set up in 8 villages and benefit over 13,000 people who can, for example, charge their mobile phones. In the nearby health centre, patients can now access vaccines. That's because the hospital is using a solar-powered refrigerator to store the vaccines.
So many cases of hepatitis in this community now. And the problem is because they don't have the vaccine earlier. So that's because of the problem they're having now. But now, since we have the vaccine, I believe the case is going to be less.
Nigeria's army has pushed back the Boko Haram group, but it still stages suicide bombings, not only in Nigeria but in neighbouring countries like Niger, Cameroon and Chad.
To Egypt now, where a new scheme is proving a source of comfort for cash-strapped couples and their families. Faced with a period of economic hardship, people are turning to a cooperative savings system to find funding outside the banking system.
Wedding festivities are in full swing in this town on Egypt's Nile Delta, but the bride and groom are only a side party. Before today, many guests had never met them. In a back room, they still donate to the common pot. Each guest will eventually collect his money when he throws his own party.
It saves money. It allows us to have a decent wedding. It's helpful. If I attend someone's wedding, he attends mine. I collect between 3,300 and 3,800, and after paying for the band and the electricity, we can buy land or a car with what's left of the money.
This is an alternative to bank loans in a country where inflation has ballooned since the 2011 uprising. Some Egyptians fear they could lose their savings if banks go bust. Others don't even have bank accounts.
The banking system is not available to 90% of Egyptians, so it's difficult to get loans and use it on a daily basis. The only solution for people is to try to find a cooperative method.
Hassan Agami's job is to keep track of each person's contribution and fix a schedule for future collections.
I consider it a success when everyone attends. Whoever skips the party has fooled me, so I knock on his door the following day.
These collection parties have become so popular that people have to reserve slots months in advance. In the meantime, the more celebrations they attend, the bigger party they can hope to organize.
Finally, to the tiny West African nation of Benin, an annual event which serves as a reminder of the country's tragic past. Sees huge crowds, among them voodoo worshippers, gather at the Gate of No Return monument in Ouida. Erected in 1992, it's a symbol of the coastal village's past as a hub of the slave trade.
The moment believers feel a spirit entering their body, in a trance, reaching a sacred state. This former slave trading post hosts Benin's annual voodoo festival.
Every African is born voodoo. That is why our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents were taken into slavery. Now their spirits are coming back to us here.
The festival takes place at the Gate of No Return, built in memory of the millions of slaves that passed through this small coastal town. The slaves spread voodoo to the Caribbean, Brazil and the United States.
Voodoo started in Ouida and then spread all over the world. You have to recognize that. It can't be denied. What is voodoo? It's nature, the four elements of nature, respecting them, knowing them, and respecting their principles.
Ouida became a point of pilgrimage for voodoo's 50 million followers when the festival was founded in 1993. Visitors come from all around the world, many on an ancestral quest, others on a spiritual journey.
I wanted to see for myself what voodoo really was. And here it's a national religion, and it's not the negative aspect of putting pins in dolls and working magic for evil. The people who practice voodoo are very lovely people. They're very kind.
Voodoo and slavery linked forever on this strip of land, where perhaps for some there's a chance to make peace with the past.
And that's it for this edition of Across Africa. Thanks for watching and do stay tuned to France 24.